Okay, the other one, it's going to work the same way. Now, when you're finding the octave on the G string, it's that same thing we did on the D string. It's 3 frets higher and a string over. So knowing your octaves everywhere on the guitar is really, I think, the first thing if you're trying to, get these intervals down better. Really know those octaves. So if I pick any note anywhere, you should be able to, boom, find the octaves. Okay, so check this out. Let's try that. Let's play this E note right here. It's the 2nd fret of the D string. I just picked it randomly, no rhyme or reason. Well, I know an octave lower is the open E. But how do I get the octave higher? Well, I do know, actually, that the open high E string is the octave. That works too, so those are octaves. But how do I do that thing we just spent 10 minutes on? Well, so the octave of this E right here that I found, I mean, all those were octaves, but the 5th fret on the B string. Just like that. Alright, let's do another one. This B flat right here. Let's find the octave below and the octave above. The octave below, and I said it's B flat. Okay. The octave above is on the B string over. Alright. Let's just do one more. This F note right here. The octave would be right there. So that little distance, and it's really cool too, because you can use, I kind of learned those octaves well by starting to get them in my soloing, Okay, but the octaves are going to help us locate those other intervals. And let me talk about one that we identify all the time, the sevenths. There's a thing called a minor 7, there's a thing called a major 7. And if you know your octaves, that's a really good way to find those 7th notes and start to visualize them. If I can just, without even looking, visualize those octaves, I know the major 7, and I said this before, always, is the note that's a half step below the root. So that means to play a major 7 interval, boom, I see it. Just like that. But what if, so the octave's there. That means that that's the major 7. But also, check this out. When you're in one position, when you're on the E note, you've got octave there, and instead of going like this, you've always got the same note on the high E. So I could also just right away, knowing where my root notes are, I could see that the major 7's right here too. Well, the same thing. From the octave, the minor 7 is just a whole step below the root. Okay? Or the octave's right here. That means the minor 7 is right there. So or just the octaves of both the minor 7s up to the root. Okay, so boom, knowing those octaves leads me to be able to see both sevenths really easily. And also in, you know, one position, because when you're improvising, playing scales, and soloing too, these intervals come in handy. For instance, you know, even just playing over, you know, an A minor chord, or an A minor 7, I know that the 5th sounds really good as a lead-in tone, and I just learned that through experience. Sliding into the 5th from the tritone. See that? You know, I knew that that's the 5th. In one position, there's 2 5ths there. Okay? What does the minor 7th sound like? So where I'm going with this is that you can actually, you know, create different moods by knowing, you know, the makeup of this stuff. Okay? So knowing octaves is great, and it also helps us see those 7s really easily. Check this out now. Just knowing our root, we'll be able to know the notes of the minor 2nd and the major 2nd really well, because they're just right either a half step or a whole step above the root. So by knowing the octave, I'll also know those 2 notes an octave higher. So that means that the minor 2nd's right here, and the major 2nd's right here, as opposed to also just, and that is going to help when you're playing like an arpeggio, and you know that an arpeggio has, you know, a flat 2 note in there, or the scale's got a flat 2. Those little terms, you know, are all part of this interval thing. Okay, so by just kind of locating a note, we've seen that the octave's going to really help first in so many different ways, because it takes you to the next range. Also, we can see going up to the octave, we'll see that the major 7 is a half step below, but the minor 7 is a whole step below the root. If I do a little major 3rd in here off of the root, you'd hear it sounds like a 7 chord. And the intervals are root, minor 7, with the major 3rd up top. See that? No 5th, but I could get a 5th in there right here. But food for thought, the 5th is the easiest note to leave out. If you gotta, you know, it's the most disposable interval in a chord. Okay? So, the next thing that we want to do, I'm going to actually, we're going to end this little module, which was the octaves and the 7ths and the 2s, and we're going to, you know, go to the next module so you can kind of review this in a different chapter where I talk about really knowing 4ths and 5ths really well. Okay? So hang tight, that's coming right up.